confident entrepreneurs are capable of doing anything. I left home when I was 14 years old and lived with a nun to finish out my high school years. What we do is provide Philippines-based executive assistance for our entrepreneurial clients. And what we found is that entrepreneurs often feel like they're on this sort of teeter-totter, right? Being isolated as one EA in an organization is tough, but having a community of hundreds of fellow executive assistants all working for fellow entrepreneurs is where you can get experience sharing. On average, last week we interviewed over 2,000 people. We got to second round interviews on 250 of them, and we hired 4 out of that pool. So 1 to 2% is kind of the take rate from what we're doing. Those are key elements of that relationship really being, meaningful and moving the needle.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to The Business Game,
a podcast that moves the needle.
Hey guys, before we get started today, just a really quick moment to thank one of our sponsors, SmoothX. Their integration platform connects Proposal, Xero, QuickBooks, and more. Trusted by over 1,000 clients globally, and you can be operational in under 30 minutes. Visit smoothx.com to simplify your workflows, and thanks again to SmoothX for sponsoring The Business Game.
Hello, and welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. I'm Kalena, Stano.
I'm Steve Plummer.
And before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Today, we are joined by Ryan Cassin, author and co-founder of Superpowers. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
Kalena, Steve, I am doing phenomenal. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Pleasure.
Awesome. To kick things off, Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Superpowers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose first and foremost, I would say I'm a husband to my wife, Carissa. We've been married 15 years as of last month, which is incredible to say. It goes by like that, as anybody can relate to. But I suppose more on the business side, co-founder of Superpowers and Here Homes. Prior to that, I co-founded a political consulting business in 2010 and owned that for a decade, and then exited that and started Superpowers in March of 2020. So an interesting time to begin building a brand new business from scratch. But it's been phenomenal. And Superpowers is in the business of helping entrepreneurs get new levels of freedom and growth. And what we do is provide Philippines-based executive assistance for our entrepreneurial clients. And what we found is that entrepreneurs often feel like they're on this sort of teeter-totter, right? That they prioritize the personal freedom, the reason that they started a business and took on all that risk, and they sacrifice the business growth, or they prioritize the business growth and it sacrifices personal freedom, right? These sort of two things are on a teeter-totter for a lot of entrepreneurs. And we think that a really high leverage executive assistant is one of the ways you can get freedom and growth in your business.
Yeah, fantastic. You mentioned that word executive assistant, Ryan. Can you explain the difference before we really dive in here? What's the difference between a virtual assistant and an executive assistant?
Yeah, it's such a great question. We think about it in terms of the 3 Ps. And I think that this is something that I found is helpful for folks who are thinking about, okay, who is the right hire for me and my business, what I need right now? And it's the 3 types of assistants. The first is a project assistant. The second is a process assistant. And the third is a proactive assistant. So a project assistant. This is where you go to your Fivers, your Upworks. You've got a very specific task that you need done. You're looking for somebody with a hammer and a screwdriver because that's exactly the tools you need to get the job done. So you're going to hire a graphic designer, a web developer, somebody who has a technical skill. That's a project assistant, and they're great on the marketplaces, right? The next is a process assistant. And this is where virtual assistants really do well. And you can find virtual assistants around the world at an incredible price, right? You can, anywhere $5, $10 an hour, in US dollars, right? Just really affordable sort of human automation, right? You've got the process well defined. You're not looking for a lot of innovation or creativity. You just need to make sure that this person is executing the steps faithfully and consistently every single time they need to take action, right? So that's a process assistant. Great for virtual assistants. The proactive assistant, that's where you get an executive assistant. That's somebody who can see the full you, right? You as a business owner, you personally, your spouse, your children, they have the full picture of who you are. They know key clients, they know key relationships and people on your team. They see around the corner and ultimately they anticipate you. So one of the things we talk about for those proactive assistants, the executive assistants, the sign of a really high functioning executive assistant relationship is when the assistant leads the relationship, but you're the boss. So you're setting the, here's where we're headed. Here are the parameters. Here's what's acceptable. But I'm going to let you lead me. I'm going to let you help me be accountable. I'm going to let you help make sure my calendar is structured in a way that achieves my goals, right? But ultimately, you're going to be the leader in the relationship. And for entrepreneurs, they don't often have somebody to lead them, right? They're at the top of their organization and they really love the feeling of having an EA doing that for them.
Yeah, so not so it's redundant, but my understanding from what you've said is necessarily an executive assistant perhaps more skilled or has a broader range of skills as opposed to that virtual assistant. Would that be a fair summation of it?
I think that's right. And I think a lot of it is mindset and on both sides of the equation. If I'm hiring a virtual assistant, someone just to knock out a process for me, I'm not expecting a lot of leadership on their part, right? And I'm also not I'm not expecting that. They're not expecting that, right? With an executive assistant, very different relationship, very different dynamic, very different amount of time I'm going to invest in that person and really make sure they get to know me well, right? Get to know my preferences, get to know my work style, when I have high energy and low energy, what really fires me up, what are my unique ability tasks, what's everything that's not unique ability that we need to work together to get off my plate, right? It's just a completely different level of investment. And so it really shapes how you approach the relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know I've actually been an executive assistant back. And
amazing.
And it is very much a personal thing. You learn it's a relationship, right? And you are guiding the business owner or the director or whoever. And there's so much more to it than just a process. It's a process that suits them. So that's really cool that that's what you do is you're matching those people together.
There's depth, there's warmth, there's genuine care for each other, right? And those are key elements of that relationship really being, meaningful and moving the needle.
Yes, absolutely. And when an entrepreneur is in that headspace and they need that pressure taken off, they need someone who can see them, right? Because like you said, they're at the top. They need someone to sort of guide them. Even though they're still in charge, they need that person to sort of steer the ship a bit for them in a way that suits their lifestyle and personality. So on that, is there a success story that you can pinpoint with what you do at Superpowers?
Oh, yeah. I love working for entrepreneurs. So it is the most dynamic, exciting, entertaining, unpredictable group of people you'll ever find, right? No two entrepreneurs are alike. And so we have tons of great success stories. One that comes to mind is we've got a client who was able to grow his business 30% year over year, established company, right? Large existing team, sort of was in the, low to mid growth kind of, block by block, brick by brick, year over year. And he's had explosive growth. And he attributes a lot of that to the ability to have the free space to really vision what the future of the business is and to think deeply rather than getting distracted by the things in the business, really, truly working on the business, thinking deeply about what it will require to be able to grow at that kind of rate. Again, for an established business, this 30% year over year growth is a tremendous increase from past years. And he's done it while pursuing passions that make him more creative, higher energy, things like his personal fitness, a podcast, a coaching program. And so for us, that's really, sort of the perfect encapsulation of what it means to have freedom and growth in the business. And that those two things don't have to be in tension. I'll give you one other example that's a little bit more fun, though. And I will not name names. We'll protect the innocent here. But we had a client who, in his discovery call, had this habit of rubbing his temple because he was stressed. He had a lot of visible anxiety about where he was in the business. And he had rubbed it so much that his hair had fallen out in that little spot. He had a little bald spot. And lo and behold, 6 months later, on one of our check-in calls we did with him, the bald spot had regrown. And amazingly, his executive assistant is what he credited for his hair regrowth, which I think is, I mean, if we can regrow hair, I mean, that's a pretty
incredible
selling point, right? I know, right? Come on.
All right, note to self, don't rub the temple, right?
Funny. That's a good story. I like that.
Yeah. All right, let's drill down into a little bit of the how there, Ryan, if we can. So can you talk us through the 3 C's at Superpowers that you work with?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that one of the things that we've learned is that a lot of entrepreneurs recognize the value of this relationship, right? Like in theory, they want it. It seems like a good thing that they should have and that they need. And where it breaks down is all of the questions that follow that decision is like, oh, I need to get an executive assistant, right? So how do I train them? How do I make sure that they're doing a good job? Like, what is a good job in this role? How long should it take? How do I support them? Do I really want to be in the business of supporting this person when, in theory, it's the only person on the team who fills this role, right? It's not like sales or operations where you're scaling those so you have processes and systems. This is really an individual on the team who doesn't have a natural peer. And so you get locked up. A lot of folks get locked up on all of the questions that follow and honestly, it feels like more work than it's going to be, worth to get started. And so the 3 C's, I think, are where we've really focused to help alleviate those concerns. And it's curriculum, coaching, and community. And so curriculum in the form of our Superpowers University, we've distilled, you mentioned the book at the beginning, we've distilled a ton of our learning and stories and mindset shifts into the book Superpowered, which is on Amazon. But if you hop on a discovery call with us, or if you email us coming out of this, by all means, we're happy to send folks a copy of it. We're really passionate about sharing what we've learned. So curriculum, right? The mindsets, the training, the core playbooks that lead to success in that relationship. The coaching, right? Both of the entrepreneur, how to be a more effective delegator, how to expect more in this relationship, but also of the executive assistant, right? How do we get feedback back to the executive assistant? How do we continue to grow them? Because we have to feed their growth mindset as well for this relationship to be successful. And then the last part is community, right? Being isolated as one EA in an organization is tough, but having a community of hundreds of fellow executive assistants all working for fellow entrepreneurs is where you can get experience sharing and you can get advice or best practices. You can get the support that you need to be really happy. And of course, folks who are happy are going to be more effective in whatever role they have.
I love that. I actually just want to ask about the community element, because that is a huge part, right? Is the loneliness. If you're just, we were sort of chatting about that before, just some people, working from home can feel a little bit lonely, all those sorts of things. So how do you make that happen? How do you create that community? Is there like an online sharing space, or where are these people meeting up?
Yeah, no, it's something we think a lot about. So we have, of course, a shared sort of like Slack or Discord, a chat environment, right? So that's sort of the asynchronous communication. That's a lot of the celebrating, birthdays or just fun events, sharing good news, right? What we've found have been really successful for us are what we call our community Mondays, getting all the EAs together for upskilling and training. So we're talking a lot about AI right now. Folks really want to figure out, how can I use AI? People see AI, I think, as their assistant's assistant, right? And entrepreneurs may engage with AI, but I think they see the value really for their EA being really enhanced by having good AI skills. And so we're doing a lot of training in our community Mondays on that. And then we're doing one-on-one matchups, right? So we're intentionally finding ways to connect people in our community one-on-one so that they can have dialogue and conversation, get to know each other better. And that kind of reduces the friction for sending a message or asking for a quick, one-on-one Zoom meeting with a fellow EA. You've got a relationship already, right?
Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad you mentioned the AI, because that was something I really wanted to ask you about, because obviously everyone's, leaning in. They're like, you don't have years, you've got months, you got to learn it now. And it's quite overwhelming. But like you said, entrepreneurs, they're busy and they're having that personal touch. You can't really you can train ChatGPT or whatever, platform you're using, but you're really not going to get that same human touch as you do from an EA. And so having your EAs trained in that space is going to allow you to, move quickly and keep up with the times, but you don't have to necessarily learn all of it. So that's great that you're doing that.
Totally. I would love for my right-hand person, I would love for everybody on our team, just more broadly thinking about, putting on my entrepreneur hat. I would love for everybody on my team to be getting AI training specific to their role, right? I mean, I think that it's moving so fast that, you'd hope that every member of your team is really leveraging it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Just on that, is AI a threat to your business or to EAs? Because again, we were talking about that. I wonder if that's, because AI is impacted on many businesses and many roles. And what's it been like for you and your EAs and I guess your business? Because the whole purpose of hiring someone else is to take roles off you, but kind of AI is a similar thing, right? So how has there been an impact on your business, either in a negative way or a positive way with AI?
I think so far, it's a really good question. And we kind of every year are like tracking the progress of AI and thinking, okay, at what point is there this potential tipping point where actually my AI EA is better than my human EA, right? I think there's a few parts to that. Right now, we're seeing tremendous benefit because it makes communication more effective. It upskills EAs to deal with. You think about the portfolio of questions and issues an entrepreneur might deal with. It's sales in the morning, operations in the afternoon, it's high stakes client meetings in the evening, right? Having your EA be able to use AI to learn very quickly what your context is and to understand what you might need in those different situations, super, super valuable. Like AI truly is your assistant's assistant right now. It works with them throughout the day to make them better. What AI would have to do is be able to anticipate you, right? It can know you, it can understand you, but it definitely can't anticipate you right now. It doesn't have that broad picture of who you are and what you need and look around the corner yet. And then the other thing is it would have to convincingly, I think, care for you. And it's a soft thing. It's not something that we lean into and we're trying to sell the ROI on an EA. But for folks who've been with their EA for 2-3 years now with us, like that's the thing that actually like people get moved to tears. They talk about their relationship as a very emotional thing. I'll give you one example that, just goes to show the depth of these relationships. We had a client who was traveling from his home in Kentucky to a conference in Vancouver and said, oh my gosh, this is the perfect sort of halfway distance to meet my EA in real life and actually build that relationship in person. And so he paid to fly her from the Philippines to Canada and have that meeting and spend that time together because that relationship was genuine. It was real. He felt that care and compassion and knew that they would be closer as a result of that meeting. So in a world of AI, people are still looking for ways to physically, meet one-on-one and continue to grow their relationships.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. That's a good story.
And I think, and look, I mean, this is, of course, I'm talking from our experience in EAs, but I think there's a much broader application here, right? I think that, it's really easy to say AI makes all of us, it gives all of us these superpowers, like literally, right? And yet the human connection piece and our ability to form relationships that are meaningful, both on our teams and with our clients, that's where the real magic happens in the age of AI.
Yes. Yep. Agreed. Totally. I love that you mentioned that. Speaking of leaning on to the risk, have you had a lesson that you kind of had to learn the hard way over your journey here, like doing with Superpowers, either personal or business?
For me, I would say that the lesson is one that I continue to learn. I have a tendency, my natural style is to be a meticulous planner, right? To have the perfect plan, deeply researched, every contingency imagined and anticipated, right? And what I have found is that through doing this now, entrepreneurship for 15 years, is that no matter how good the plan is, it's not going to, it's just an idea. And once you actually go out and do, you realize the real world is very, very different, right? And so I would say that the risk for me personally is that I overplan and underact if I let my sort of natural desire get in the way. And what I tell myself is that action is the antidote to fear, right? That, the uncertainty, the risk, all of the unknowns that might happen, you just have to take action and learn from it. I'm part of a program called Strategic Coach. Dan Sullivan helps coach entrepreneurs. And one of the things he talks about is the 4 C's, right? And so the 4 C's is sort of this process that I've really adopted, right? It's commitment, right? So I'm going to commit to do something, and that might be growing my business. It might be learning a new capability or skill, or going into a new market, right? So I'm going to commit to doing that. And then I'm going to have the courage. I'm going to get the courage to act on it, right? That's the second C. I'm going to build up the courage to say, I'm actually going to deliver on my commitment that I made. The third C is the capabilities that you grow along the way, right? The new skills, the new learnings. And that leads to new levels of confidence. And the biggest through line of strategic coach, and I found this to be true in my entrepreneurial experience as well, is that confident entrepreneurs are capable of doing anything, and unconfident entrepreneurs are locked up and do very, very little. And just that confidence is where the magic happens. If you can protect your entrepreneurial confidence, you can do anything.
Wow, that's a great line.
It is.
I love that. Ryan, can we delve into you just as a person a little bit? What's something that has shaped who you are that's not necessarily linked to business or tech or anything like that? So the success, the person that you are today.
I think the one thing from my background and my story, and it sounds a little unbelievable, but the thing that probably shaped me the most was that I left home when I was 14 years old and lived with a nun to finish out my high school years. And so I was a really independent kid, and I had never completed 2 years of consecutive years of school anywhere. Where we moved around a lot early in my life as a family. And I had my first 2 ever, consecutive years of high school, my freshman and sophomore year. I was halfway through my junior year and my family is moving again. I said, well, that's fine, but I'm not going to do that. I really want to stay here. I want to finish out where I started. I want to see it through. And I don't think they really wanted to have the argument with a 14-year-old, which I can appreciate now being 40. And so they said, fine. They said, okay, it's fine. But gave me this impossible condition. They said, you figure out how you're going to live and earn your way. I didn't have a job or anything. I mean, we lived in rural Michigan on a 160-acre farm, right? Like this is an impossible feat. And they said, you can't live with your girlfriend either. Like that's off limits, right? And so I was going to a Catholic high school, and through the grace of God and just an incredible blessing, a nun there offered to take me in if I earned my keep, and did a lot of chores around the house. I mean, it was very active. She was very serious about that. But I think there's a few lessons I got out of that. A, it was deeply affirming of going your own way, right? It worked out. And so that gave me a lot of confidence, even if I didn't necessarily think of that moment later on in life. You can just go do things, right? And you'll figure it out. And so that was a really, I think it was a defining moment in a lot of ways. And it's really helped me in the entrepreneurial world, of course, where you are going out on and trying to do something different and totally reliant on yourself. And of course, you've got great people around you, hopefully, that support you, as I did, when I left home. But you're really taking a bet, a risk on yourself. And so that was that's a memory that I really have grown to appreciate a lot more as I've gotten older.
That's a really fun story, and I can't imagine what it would have been like to have a nun making me do chores.
High levels of discipline at all times.
Yes,
a nun is your mom. Right?
But it would have taught you a lot of discipline, which I'm sure you can apply to a lot you as well.
Got good at domestic chores as well, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. She was the sweetest that you could imagine, but also sweet and strict.
Yeah. Hey, those are the best caregivers, I think.
Truly.
They teach you a lot.
Hey guys, just a quick break to thank our affiliate partner, HubSpot. We are thrilled to announce our partnership with HubSpot, the ultimate all-in-one CRM platform. HubSpot helps you streamline marketing, sales, and customer service with powerful tools to grow your business faster. From lead generation to automations, it's got you covered. By using the link in the description, you not only get to start your HubSpot journey for free, but you'll also be supporting our work here on the show. Now it's back to today's episode.
Back to the EAs, I just wanted to touch lightly on your marketing efforts. So the executive assistants are still relatively new concept for a lot of people. Are you using some of your marketing efforts to educate potential consumers on that? Or are you just going purely like, this is a service we're offering? Or how are you splitting that up in terms of marketing?
Yeah, it's a really great question. It's one that we're constantly thinking about as well, because I think it's really easy to be bombarded by marketing for VAs and EAs and all these other things on every channel imaginable. So on the one hand, it feels like it's an incredibly crowded space. On the other hand, I think a lot of that noise locks people up. It's like, oh gosh, what do I need, right? And who's going to truly understand me? We have spent virtually nothing. We produced the book, but that was as much about purpose for us and sharing and creating value for others as it was about marketing. I don't think we would put that in the marketing bucket, but we spent very little on marketing. And what has been so influential for us has been word of mouth. We're entrepreneurs are a group of folks who love to share their secret, right? What's making them effective? What's making them successful at this moment? And so what we've done is, because we've been so lucky and blessed to earn so many referrals, is we put in place a guarantee, right? And I think a lot of businesses think, particularly in professional services, oh, what's my guarantee? Satisfied or your money back, right? That kind of thing. And that always just kind of rang a little bit hollow to us. And so what we've done is we've instituted this really valuable growth channel into our guarantee, where our guarantee is that in the first 90 days, you'll be so satisfied and pleased with your relationship, you'll introduce us to 2 entrepreneur friends, right? And so we're baking in referrals right from the get-go, because we've seen that, everyone knows this, right? Birds of a feather flock together. The best clients are connected to the other future best clients. And it's been really tremendous for us. I will say that the world has changed a lot post-COVID. And, it feels like it was just yesterday, but also a long time ago, somehow simultaneously. COVID changed a way that a lot of people worked. And I think people understand that as long as they're tied to a physical office, as long as they have to be in an office to be effective, they can't truly get freedom and growth. And so having an EA who's really effective for you, but also out of the office, is one of the forcing functions in business to make sure that you've set up your organization, your team, your processes that allow you to get out of the office, which is ultimately one of the goals, of course, for everybody.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about those operational things. I'm curious, how do you go about recruiting, training, and then matching up an executive assistant, to the right business leader or entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's we have a woman by the name of Amber. She's our Chief Happiness Officer, which is a title we created because she's the matchmaker, and it's absolutely magic to see her in action. She just understands both worlds so phenomenally well. On the entrepreneur side, we'll have a discovery call where we scope and design the ideal executive assistant for that person. We figure out, is this somebody we could even potentially find for you? But coming out of that call, you've got a really clear game plan, a blueprint for who that person is, what your unique ability activities are, what gets in the way of that, and what you could delegate, who that person needs to be to have high levels of confidence and trust and work well together, and the impact it would make, the why behind it, right? So you come away from that with a really clear scope and idea of who that right person is. And we use the predictive index, which, some folks have used these different personality profiles. We found predictive index for us has just been absolutely a game changer. And so we learn the style of the entrepreneur. Are they really assertive, or are they super collaborative? Are they really social, or are they, more introverted and like to work alone in their head? Are they super patient? No entrepreneur we've met meets that criteria. Or are they really impatient, right? They want quick start. And are they highly detail oriented, or are they really bad with the details, but they're focused on the big picture, right?
Vision, yeah.
And so, exactly. And so you look at those 4 dimensions, and then you find an EA through a hiring process. We're on average, last week we interviewed over 2,000 people. we got to second round interviews on 250 of them, and we hired 4 out of that pool. So 1 to 2% is the kind of the take rate from what we're doing. But we match with their personality assessment. And what we try to share, and we share this in the book as well, is the thinking around complement, not a clone. So like one of the mindset shifts that we have to talk entrepreneurs through, and one of the reasons we don't work with solopreneurs is you can't have a clone of yourself. You need someone who's a complement, right? So if you're highly assertive and you're sociable and out there with clients and you're low patience and low detail, I can guarantee you a clone of you is going to make all your problems 10x, not 2x, 10x worse in the business, right? You need someone who's higher detail, someone who's maybe not patient, but they're steady and methodical enough to see the system and the process, right? That is able to work more introverted, more independently, because it's a position that is a little bit isolated in the org chart. And somebody who loves collaboration, who genuinely gets joy, not just from seeing another sale, but from seeing you personally succeed. And so talking through complement, not a clone, is one of the big mindset shifts for some entrepreneurs. And again, it's why I would encourage anyone who's a solopreneur to think really carefully about their use case if they want to go hire an EA. Because if you're just looking to double yourself up because you're just inundated and overwhelmed, chances are someone who has a skill in operations or in sales is actually going to be a better first hire for you than an EA. A really great EA is going to have a team that they can rely on to help get things off of your plate in the business.
Yeah, I love that distinction. I think
yes.
that's
super
really good.
important.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm interested, obviously you've got different time zones happening across the board. So how do you build that loyalty and company culture within your business?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. We're sourcing all from the Philippines. The majority of our clients are in the US or Canada. We've got a few in Australia. But by and large, there's a big time zone difference. So it's about, I think it's 12 hours on the nose from where I am in Dallas. And so our EAs are working US and Canadian time zones through the night. And this is actually a fairly common practice in the Philippines, supporting US-based businesses. There's a lot of support, both in terms of family, like understanding that that's your work style, that is, you're going to be working overnight. But also just in terms of, again, that community piece. There's a lot of sort of 24-hour options available for Filipinos to be able to live a normal life during their day, right? Working in the US hours. I think the more deep answer, though, that I would reflect on is that culture doesn't come from shared proximity. I think culture, I think understanding, I think that relationship, that connection, it really comes from shared purpose. And so when we talk about creating freedom and growth for entrepreneurs, we try to put meat on the bone. It's a tagline. It's on our website, but what does that mean when somebody has more freedom and has growth, right? They're able to be better husbands. They're able to be better fathers to their kids, more present with the people that they're around. Their business is growing, which means that it's creating new and bigger opportunities for the people who are already on the team and creating new spaces for new members of the team to join, right? So all of these things. And then of course you can personalize it and talk about freedom and growth stories, which we do a lot of, to make sure that everyone is charged up on that purpose. Because I think when we're all aligned by that shared purpose and don't just rely on shared proximity, that's when the magic happens.
I've got a follow-up question there, Ryan, and I'd love your opinion on it, because I think it's something that in the post-COVID world, a lot of entrepreneurs, business leaders are wrestling with, is the remote work, the hybrid work, or the in-office work. And I heard a suggestion recently, well, if people are working from home or working remotely, I should be able to see what they're doing. And, why not camera on to see what's going on? And other people push back on that, going, that's a little creepy, or it's intrusive. So what's your view, having managed people in different time zones and, as Kalena suggested, across the world, on that? How do you manage that, the accountability and all that sort of stuff? And is camera on all the time? Is that too intrusive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It would feel too intrusive to me. I've certainly met entrepreneurs who have that office set up, but then they've got members of the team who are remote, and they've got the Zoom that's sort of constantly running 8 or 9 hours a day, beaming in the other team members. And I think for me, it's weird because it's going out of your way to create sort of almost some of the worst parts of the office, right? Where you can just interrupt somebody and say, hey, can I get a second of your time as I'm walking by? Versus what I think is the real joy of the distributed work, which is very results oriented. Everybody's able to kind of work on their own, to their own work style. And yeah, we've got shared sort of rules and understanding about like what could interrupt you, but a lower distraction environment overall, right? I think the weird thing about hybrid and then taking it, sort of ultra hybrid by having the live Zoom session, it just strikes me as the worst of all worlds, as opposed to really leaning in with a strong opinion about this is how we're going to work together, and this is why we believe it's going to be effective for us. So I wouldn't personally be a huge fan of that. No judgment to the folks who do that. For our assistants, we do have some protections in place, particularly with just making sure that we love to say we keep honest people honest, right? And so our team does have, for security purposes, we have tracking in place to make sure that, personal information and data isn't being, abused or exfiltrated in any sort of way. So we do have some built-in protections, but it's not in the spirit of trying to recreate a faux virtual digital office.
I like that. It's bringing in the worst parts of the office, because that is the worst. If you're in the office and you're trying to get something done and someone just waves their hand and and you're interrupted constantly and you're feeling watched and you're not able to execute as you would if you were just
an hour later. I've just got 1 minute of your time. An hour later,
Yes,
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. We've all been there. And then by the time that, you even just a quick, Microsoft did this fascinating study many years ago about the cost, about switching costs, right? In multitasking, to say nothing of distractions like somebody coming by your office, right? And they found that it was over a half hour to get back into deep work mode. And I think anybody can relate to this, where they get distracted and then they never actually get back to deep work mode. They forever stay at the sort of surface level, respond to text message, respond to email, respond to Slack, wait for the next email to come in, because every email gets 3 more, it seems like, right? So that's a big challenge. I will say there's one exception to this for me personally, and this is the concept of body doubling. There's been some research done on this as well, that suggests for people who are very distractible, maybe ADD or ADHD, that this concept of body doubling is really effective for getting more done. And what it is you meet up with somebody else in a Zoom session and you say, okay, this Zoom session is going to be 30 minutes or an hour, and I'm going to get X, Y, and Z done. And they say, okay, great. And I'm going to get something completely different. This could be a perfect stranger, A, B, and C done. There are services online that match you up to random people who just want to get something done over the next 30 to 60 minutes. Then you go on mute, you have the video on, and for whatever reason, for people who just need that sort of, I'm doing something, I've got somebody else that I'm kind of doing it with, even you're working on completely separate projects, really, really effective. And I personally do this with my EAs. Like if I've got something that I'm procrastinating on and I'm truly the right person to do it, but I'm procrastinating on it, I will say, Leslie, we're going to get on a 30-minute Zoom. I'm going to share my screen with you. And you don't have to say a word. I'm just going to make sure that I don't get distracted, because I know you're paying attention to what I'm doing. And it's super effective in those rare cases where I just need to get unstuck.
Yes. I love that. There are so many people in my mind that I'm like, I know exactly who I'm going to tell about this. I'm going to go do something.
Yeah, that's a game changer, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially like when you've got those tasks that sort of keep building up that you really just don't want to touch, and you just want to keep doing the fun thing.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure.
That's brilliant.
I'll get to that later. I'll come back to that. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. Well, like you said, getting unstuck, just that 30 minutes of commitment can just get that action ticked off.
So, and the worst part is that I'll procrastinate on something for days, weeks, whatever it is, and then in 30 minutes it's done. I'm like, why? Yeah. Why did I wait so long? Right?
Yeah. Well, that makes me feel less alone, because I am very much the same.
Well, and the best part is Leslie can say, hey, Ryan, I noticed this one's been hanging out for a long time. Maybe we ought to hop on a Zoom for 30 minutes and just get it knocked out. What do you say? So,
there you go.
Like, okay.
Awesome. I want to talk to you about the book that you co-authored, talking about the power of assistance. So what framework from that book do you ask every founder to adopt in the month 1 of hiring an assistant?
The book, Superpowered, really is a passion project of ours. For us, it was a lot of purpose built into it to try to help share with other fellow entrepreneurs what we've learned on this journey, tactical examples, how to find the right who, but I think the biggest thing for us is the mindset shifts, right? And so in the first 30 days, we're looking to begin to make some of these mindset shifts. One of them I've already talked about, which is that your EA should be the leader in the relationship and you're the boss, right? And so when you think about, 60 or 90 days into the relationship, I'm expecting that your executive assistant is beginning to, show those signs of assertiveness, show those signs of proactivity, show those signs that they're anticipating you. But here are some of the other mindset shifts that I've seen be really, really effective for getting the most out of this relationship. The first one is delegating down versus up. So we're in the executive assistant space, and a lot of the, sort of discussion that we have is, oh, I've just got to get this crap off my plate. If I could just get all this stuff off my plate, it gets in the way. I don't want to do it. And I think that is a delegate down attitude. And what it's missing is that you can take all of those things that are necessary. You're doing them, right? You're not wasting your time, by virtue of doing them. You're just not the right person to do them. They still need to get done. Instead of thinking about delegating them down because you don't like them, think about delegating it up to somebody who those activities are their unique ability, right? There are people in the world, believe it or not, who love calendaring, who love email, who love task management and project management. And if you delegate up to those people, those things you don't like doing, not only does it go from something you're incompetent at to somebody who's really excellent at those tasks, they're passionate, they're excited to do them, they're consistent, they're innovative, right? You get so much more by virtue of giving it to somebody who that's their unique ability. And it shifts the tasks from the menial work to being more meaningful work, right? And the unlock there is you can begin to think of your EA not as an expense, but as an investment, right? So delegating down versus up, that's a big shift. Another one that we talked about is the project, process, and proactive assistant, right? So the 3 Ps, who's the right fit for you? Another mindset shift, cleaning before the housekeeper arrives. We see this all the time. I'm guilty of it as well. It's like, I need an executive assistant so bad. Things are on fire. I don't know up from down, but I can't hire that person today because I haven't cleaned up my messes yet. It's like, well, what are you doing? You're cleaning before the housekeeper arrives, right? Why are you doing that? You're bringing somebody in specifically with the mission of getting that stuff under control. Don't delay by creating an artificial requirement that you have to get everything under control. And the last thing I would say is that relationships are formed in a crock pot, not a microwave. And so when you think about onboarding, we're really intentional about crafting the first 30, 60, and 90 days and going deep into the relationship to figure out, is it on track? Because you don't form a relationship in 30 seconds in the microwave. The flavors got to come together over the course of a long time in the crock pot. So those are the things. Delegate down versus up, the 3 Ps, cleaning before the housekeeper arrives, crock pot versus microwave, and the EA should be a leader and you're the boss. Those are the 5 mindset shifts that we see unlock the greatest impact.
Excellent.
Those are great.
Yeah.
All of those.
Yeah.
Cleaning before the house cleaner arrives. That
No one does that.
I am so unbelievably guilty of that. My wife laughs at me. She's like, what are you doing?
Let's talk about the success that you've had, Ryan. So the biggest year of revenue growth, what were your top 3 decisions, your top 3 pivots that really drove that growth? What can entrepreneurs learn from that?
Being comfortable with risk and uncertainty is the bottom line of it, right? So we've been incredibly blessed to enjoy, from a small basis, we started in 2020, but 100% year-over-year growth for the last 4 years. And I think I attribute it's not necessarily one decision, but every year we've sort of made one big decision that has unlocked the next leg of that growth. The first one was giving up on the first vision of our business, right? We had a dream of doing something completely new, completely distinct, completely unique in a totally never done before way. And we were super excited about it. And it made perfect sense to us around the whiteboard. And we built out all kinds of custom software for it, spent a lot of money to enable it, and then realized that not only did nobody want it, they didn't even understand it, right? To my closest friends in the entrepreneurial community, the people I'm closest to and who can be most honest with me, but who also would give me the greatest degree of like latitude and support. They're like, I don't get it. I'm never going to get it. This just doesn't make sense. And so we had to learn the hard way in the first year to give up on that. And we did something that people are completely aware of. I think executive assistance is not a new concept. Doing it remotely with somebody based in the Philippines, we did not invent that. We're just doing that really well and thinking about it at a much deeper level. And so that was the first thing, is actually doing something people wanted and, kind of checking our ego and our excitement about the new idea. So that was the first thing. The second thing was we took the business to zero in the second year when we shifted from exclusively US based to exclusively Philippines based. And that was a huge risk. I mean, to genuinely take the business to zero, to attrit out every US based client and replace them with this new client that was going to be staffed in the Philippines, was really, really scary. But what we found in the US is that EA was not viewed as a career position. It was a stepping stone position, right? And so our best EAs, unfortunately, shot straight through the ceiling of what they were getting out of that relationship and wanted to move on to the next thing in the business. And it was really challenging. We went to the Philippines because we said, okay, we can pay top of market rates and get career-minded folks who actually want to do this work as a career. And it's been just phenomenal. I mean, it's been, sort of a hockey stick for us in the business ever since we made that decision, versus always barely treading water with the US based. And then the last thing we did was just this past year, we cut the number of products that we offer from 2, which is not a lot, to 1. So we now offer one thing. We are ultra hyper focused on it. We looked at part-time and full-time, and all of our churn was coming from part-time. Our full-time clients would go for years, and our part-timers would go for 90 days or 6 months and get out as soon as possible. And what we found is that entrepreneurs are quick start, of course, right? And they want to see results right away. And so if I told you, here's my pitch, you're going to see amazing results at half the speed, and you're going to be able to get half the support and half the impact, nobody would say yes to that. And I think a lot of our part-timers were dabbling in what it would be like to see what you could maybe get in an executive assistant relationship. And full-time has been just a dramatic difference in terms of the level of commitment and the desire to truly integrate this person in a meaningful way into the business. So we did 3 things: gave up on our ego and stopped doing something new. We moved from the US to the Philippines and took our business to zero in the process. And then we cut the number of products we had from a whopping 2 to just 1 mighty product that we feel really confident in.
Cool.
Yeah, wow. When you hit that point where this vision that made so much sense to you and you're excited, and it just everyone, and then the people, like you said, the people in your network didn't really understand it. And how did you get over that? Like you said, you had to let go of your ego, but was there something, how long did that take you to really go, okay, we need to pivot? And how big was your pivot?
Because it's easy to say, right?
It is.
Let go of the ego, but that's also not so easy to do.
No,
Yeah.
And so I'm interested on how you went through that.
Well, it wasn't. I wanted through sheer force of will to make this new thing happen, right? Like that's kind of that's the idea. That's the dream in a lot of ways, right? To answer your question, it took way too long. It took about 6 months to finally reconcile with myself and my business partner that this was not going to be the thing. I'll tell you what made that ultimately happen. It was doing over 200 discovery calls with prospects where I got the most confused looks, and every one of these was a dagger in the heart. I'm not being dramatic, but like, this is my baby, right?
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
so
Oh,
much
I get
about
it.
it. It's going to change your life. And it's not no, it's just like, disinterest. I mean, just like, just totally not getting it, not excited about it, no passion on the other side from the prospect. And it was really painful. I mean, I feel like going through all of those no's, it built a lot of capability to get told no. So I'm not afraid of that word anymore because I've received it a lot.
Yes.
But it was ultimately the feedback from the customer. And I think that's that's ultimately what got us. And I began shifting as I could kind of feel like this wasn't working out. I began shifting the discovery calls from trying to convince you where we were going to be the right fit to really listening. Okay, what's missing in your life? What would make you, what would put you on the path to 10x growth? What gets, distracts you from getting to your goals? And it became really obvious that everybody I was talking to was describing an executive assistant without using those words.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ryan, you do run another business. We don't have time to go into it now. It's called Here Homes. And so I'm fascinated as a busy entrepreneur that's got multiple balls in the air. What keeps you up right now about scaling these businesses?
They're very different businesses. In the real estate business, it's a single family rental platform. We own houses and have raised investment dollars from investors to go buy houses and rent them out long term, right? So 1+ year leases. Interest rates are obviously the big thing that keeps me up at night, and refinancing, right? That's a really tactical playing out over the course of the last several years situation. I would say just more broadly and perhaps more meaningfully, it is, do I have the right people in the right seats? Because in both businesses, they're on a relatively high growth trajectory. And I think to stay there, we constantly have to be evaluating, do we have, the right people who have the experience getting us to where we want to be, right? It's the classic adage that what got you here won't get you there. And so making sure that we've got the right team in both cases, even though they're very different businesses doing very different things, do we have people who have experience getting us to that next level, and always going out and trying to inspire them with our purpose and our vision for what we're trying to build and get them excited to join our team.
I have a bit of a question around your 5-year end goal. So what types of initiatives and changes are you enacting already to see that? And how is that looking for you?
Yeah. So with Superpowers, we're looking to 10x our growth over the next 3 years is what we're thinking about there. And for us, that means really continuing to build deeper into entrepreneurial communities. That's been our greatest source of new relationships. But sort of zooming out, I really do think that one of the reasons I co-founded Superpowers was because this idea of getting freedom and growth is so, I think, universally attractive to entrepreneurs, right? I'll touch on it again. I mentioned strategic coach earlier. One of the big tenets of strategic growth is a self-managing company and a self-multiplying company. And so a self-managing company, that sounds great, right? I don't need to be in the day-to-day weeds of the operations. We've got a team of people and we've got the process in place to self-manage. I don't need to know anything else beyond that. I like that idea, right? It sounds like the right idea. And then very similarly, can you build a self-multiplying company where you have all the right people in all the right seats, all the right processes, that the business can grow without you being involved as the salesperson or as the person who's advocating for it, right? So self-managing, self-multiplying, those are things that very much speak to me as trying to achieve freedom and growth. And so that's what I'm trying to get, is just, it's a process, right? It's kind of like trying to run down the horizon, right? I'm never going to get there. It's always going to be just as far out in the distance. But it's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, is like, can I work with people who are helping grow this thing? And just as it does for our client businesses, I see it, right? We've got hundreds of EAs in the Philippines whose lives are changed by virtue of this opportunity. We've got people who are members of the team here in the United States who are able to grow their lives and raise their families around it. And that's really the goal. I mean, that's the motivation. It sounds cliche maybe, but that's it. I'm more committed to that process than I am a specific end date, right?
Yeah. Well, they say that's like the key to finding something that you're really enjoying is be in love with the process.
Yeah.
I think there's so much. I think there's so much happiness there, and entrepreneurship is really, really, really hard. I mean, you have to get through 200 no's to get to to figure out finally that you've got the wrong idea in some cases if you're a slow learner like me. So like there's so much that can get you down. There's so much that's challenging. There's so much that's unexpected. I think that the happiness comes from the impact and living into purpose. And this is something I was not good at earlier in my entrepreneurial journey, right? I was all about the number. It was revenue. It was personal income. But my business partner, Steven, has really helped me grow in that regard, and trying to find purpose as the That's the North Star.
Yeah.
And so that is your happiness goal, is it? The finding the purpose in it.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. If you can live into your purpose, your unique ability, whatever that is, and you can find, if you can build an organization, if you can build an environment in your life that allows you to express that every single day and get better at it every day, to me, that's a home run.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, we like to play a little game with all of our guests. It's just the Fast Five, just rapid fire questions. So try to keep it really quick answers. And just whatever
best.
comes to mind. Yeah. All right. So what was your first job?
I worked for Netscape, the browser company,
Wow.
way back when.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, how
so
fun.
I was a software engineer.
I haven't heard that
super
word
cool.
in a long time, by the way. Netscape,
I know,
Alta Vista,
I know.
right?
Yeah. Okay, killing me.
What's one thing you couldn't live without?
I hate to say it. I think it's my phone, honestly. I genuinely love being connected to other people.
Yeah. And on that, iPhone or Android?
Oh, blue bubbles forever. I'm sorry. We can't be friends with the Android green bubble friend.
Yeah. Well, they ruin all the group chats too. Like
They do. They do. I mean, it's
okay. Are you an early riser or a night owl?
I'm a bad sleeper.
Okay.
Both, unfortunately.
Oh, and what was the last book that you read?
I read Dan Brown's new book. I'm going to forget the name of it, but it's fiction. I try to read fiction. I gave up business books 2 or 3 years ago, and I love fiction. So I'm going to forget the name of it, but it's the guy who did like Da Vinci Code. It's his new book.
Fun.
It was a fun read.
Okay. Awesome. Great answers. We are just about out of time. So one last question. Where can people find you and learn more about Superpowers?
Yeah. The best place to start is our website, superpowershq.com. Visit superpowershq.com, and you've got connections to all of us there. Can take next steps, can find out about the book, all the above.
Okay, awesome. I really enjoyed this conversation,
Absolutely.
Ryan. I know for me, a big takeaway was leaning into that fear, that action taking, and not delaying with moving on when there's, a time to go, okay, I need to pivot. That was a big one for me. So I really appreciate everything that you shared around that. What about you, Steve? What did you take away?
There's probably two. It's the rubbing the temple. I can't get that image out of my mind, right? I think in pictures, that's a big one. I'm forever going to be going, no, don't rub your temple, don't rub your temple, right? I really love the analogy too of the microwave versus the crock pot thing, the slow cooker thing. I think that's really powerful because it's so accurate. So they're my two.
Those are yours too? I like that. So that is all that we've got time for. Again, thank you so much. Wherever you're listening, thanks for joining us here on The Business Game. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
To help support our continued mission to provide free, best-in-class advice from the world's most compelling business leaders, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. See you next Saturday.
Thanks for tuning into The Business Game.
If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected.
A big thank you to our major sponsor, SmoothX, for powering today's episode.
And join us again on the next episode of The Business Game,
A podcast that moves the needle.